what I finally realized is I loved being the rescuer at my company. I hated it, but I loved it. Let me try it again. I hated it and I loved it. And if you are like me, and you hate it and you love it. So you like riding to the rescue. Second thing is you like firemen. You like to be putting fires out. And your company is happy to make as many fires as they need. No, that wall wasn't supposed to be tan. It was supposed to be brown. So, that's really, you didn't give enough good information. So you helped set a fire that you now can come and put out. And the last one was guru. I loved being the guru. I went to all the best of the training, and I was constantly training and reading and things of that nature above what anyone else is. So when someone would get stuck, who do they call? Me. At first, it was annoying that they would have to come and interrupt my day. But finally, when I ripped myself out of myself and I realized I was the fault because I liked being the guy you have to go to get the information.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am joined by Al Levi, who is an author, a consultant. He ran a plumbing, heating, cooling, and electric company called OSI on Long Island for 26 years before selling his shares and moving into the consulting space to help other trade owners master their business and become more of the owner that they all desire to be. So I'm super, super excited about this. He's also written a book called The 7-Power Contractor. He's been on a number of other home service podcasts, but that's what we're going to be chatting about today. So Al, without further ado, thank you so much for coming on today and being generous with your time.
Thank you so much. I'd love to speak to anybody who does contracting work. I think it's the most noble profession there is out there. Not that, I can't fix you up if you're sick like a doctor, but we can take care of your house, your family, get, your to-do list done, things of that nature. So I've worked with an incredibly broad spectrum of contractors.
Yeah.
Kitchen cabinetry, condo builders, painters. There's people, all of those that are in my programs and such that today. So we're more alike than we're not alike.
Yeah.
I don't want you to walk away going, oh, that's great for plumbing, heating, cooling, electric companies. No, it's good for you. One of my more famous guys is actually a garage door company, Tommy Mello, who's pretty famous in the industry. And I never fixed a garage door. As long as it went up, I was good and came down.
And you, what's your connection with Tommy?
Tommy actually is funny because he was doing this time for quick story is he just started doing podcasting in 2017. And so I noticed my phone rings with a 480 number. I'm here in Arizona. And I talked to him before he was going to do the podcast. And I go, Tommy, do you live in Arizona? He goes, yeah, Al, where do you live? I go, Arizona. He goes, great. When we get done, we'll have lunch. And so we met up for lunch. And I'm talking about, different stuff. And he wants to show me his book. And I said, don't give me your book, dude. If you want me to just say it's great, because I will tell you the truth. That's my job. And so we got to talking, and finally at the end of it, he just says, great, you're hired. I go, what? I'm not auditioning for a job. He goes, no, I need everything that you talked about at my garage door company. And he was an incredible visionary, Tommy. And he's drawn a crowd from all different segments as well. Home service expert.
And so do you, when he was joking or serious about hiring you as a consultant or something, I assume?
Yeah, I did. I worked with him one-to-one. He was 15 million at that time and losing money. By the way, I'm not telling secrets out of tail here. Yeah. He was really good at making the phone ring and really good at making money disappear. So my first job was to stop the bleeding. And then, we started to make a ton of money at 15 million. And then we really grew to where he is today, 225 million in sales and in 19 different markets, I believe, around the country. Yeah, it's awesome. Tribute to Tommy. I mean, he's exceptional, but he's really leveraged the systems that I always talk about and taught.
What would you say? So using him, he's kind of a name that many service companies have heard of. What would you say is the most common, and maybe it showed up in his case as well, but when you have an owner who has grown to say $1 million in revenue, they've established like this is a legitimate business. We have some people like crews working and whatnot. So beyond, I would say, I feel like there's one set of problems for the owner operator, but then there's that other at the $1 million mark where you're the bottleneck, I would say. But what are the like telltale signs or the most common things that you see contractors making mistakes at?
Yeah, so I would say think of it as a climb as you go up a mountain or hill. And basically, how do I get myself out of the truck owner operator? Am I going to, work till I die, or because I can't really quit? And you're trying to work with whatever you're doing, painting a wall as an example, and answer a phone call while you're doing this is very difficult. And so it's really a problem for any owner operator. And the way to grow out of that, of course, is to create more calls than you can humanly do in a day, and a great enough demand that you can raise your prices as they should, so that you determine what kind of work you do, for how much, and with who. Plus, you create the money to be able to bring people in and start training them to be able to go out there and handle the painting or whatever work you do. So that's the first jump. Then when you get to 1 million, there's only two types of companies. We like to break it up more than that, Chris, and there are different barriers: 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 50 million, 100 million. The problem is that really what you need to do is, there are two types of companies. I already described Tommy, who was already great at making the phone ring, but didn't know how to handle it. And that's very common in many of the companies that I worked with. And so basically, when the phone rang, it was like adding gasoline to a fire that was already out of control, because they couldn't handle it. They didn't have the systems. They had no approach to it. There was a problem. What's more common is, somebody was a good tech, or there was no successor to the person who owned the business, so they bought it. And then they figured, well, we know what to do. We'll take care of it. Well, they're really good techs. That doesn't make you a really good owner. And so they needed to learn the skills, but they overcome it with great effort. And I worked with, husband and wife, family, or two partners who act like brothers and sisters, if you will. But basically, they ran into the same problem that my company did, which was 17 million back in the 1990s, when 17 million was real money. We couldn't replicate ourselves. As a matter of fact, there was one conversation that all of you will relate to, is that at 2 a.m., even though there were 25 techs, the two techs that were still standing at 2 a.m. was me and my brother Richie. I worked with my two older brothers and my dad. And we would have these inane conversations. But one of the inane conversations was, Richie said to me, why don't they do this? And why don't they do that? And why aren't they doing this? And I go, Richie, if they could do all of that, why would they be here working for us? They'd be down the road in a white truck thinking about how much money they could make. And you and I both know 9 out of 10 of them are going to go broke. But they don't believe that, and understandably so. But here's what I know what you want, Richie, is you want a clone. And when I said this, by the way, this is when they had only started cloning the sheep. And that was a new term. And I said that there's no clone coming. We have to start changing the way we operate. And that was, I had read a book called Employer of Choice. And basically what I came away with, and I was able to convince my dad, my two older brothers, was, if we always are going to try and catch lightning in a bottle, which means, in your case, a great painter with great painting skills, who also is willing and cooperative. Good luck trying to find that over and over again. I call it lightning in a bottle. Incredibly hard to do. And in our case, it was very hard because we did plumbing, heating, cooling, electric, but we didn't give you the full detail there. We also did residential, commercial, and industrial, all three segments. So there was a lot to know. What we finally settled on is taking willing apprentices with no skills to willing techs with great skills. And after a while, we didn't hire pre-made people anymore. We rather just train them ourselves. That didn't mean that we'd never hire somebody from outside if we needed a special skill or talent or some other reason that would be there. But the majority, far and away, is what I did. And that is exactly what I went off to do 22 years ago when I sold my business to help other companies, because I was convinced that all of these 7 powers that I had mastered at my company would work at other companies. And I'm pleased to say, really across the board, if your phone rings and now you have to go do something, this is what it's all about.
Mm. What is so our business, we provide or consulting company that does all the tech and integration and automating of back office processes and softwares and whatnot. What would you say the transition or shift is that you're seeing with applying? Because like the thing that I think is that I love about consultants and experts like you is that I tell everyone when they come to us and they're like, hey, we need a new tech stack, or what's the best tech stack for whatever, and I say, software is not going to scale your company.
No.
People and processes scale companies, and that's it. All that software does is it removes friction. And so, like, I use the analogy of if you're on a spinning bike, like if you don't have good software, you're going to be doing the workout on like 99 resistance, but people can still grow a company with good processes and people. But if you have the right software, it just, now you're pedaling at like 10 or 20 or 15 resistance. And all of a sudden you're like, man, this is way easier. There's less data entry. Things are more automated. Things are flowing. But if you put software into a poorly run business with no processes or bad people, it's just going to make you spiral out of control even faster, because there's just stuff flying around all over the place and nothing's documented. There's no systems to follow. So that's the one thing that I love, is finding the people that understand the processes better than anyone, and then looking for opportunities to make those processes happen more seamlessly or with less errors because humans aren't touching the data or whatever. That's my view. What do you hear in all of that, or what resonates, or what have you seen changing?
It reinforces what I said before about if you think software is going to fix your business and you don't have a business that's structured and known and people are trained and disciplined to documented systems in writing, then again, congratulations, you poured gasoline on a fire. Now you can go faster broke. Now you can go worse to all these customers. You can do all of these things poorly at a lot of places a lot faster until you fix the system. So years ago, we used to talk about if you can't run your business with a paper and pen, computer's not going to fix it. It's just going to do it. So of course, today we add in AI, and it's the same idea here: is that, well, AI will sort it all out. No, it won't. And that's really kind of the problem now. AI is a powerful tool. Like think as a technician for a minute. It's great to have a great toolbox, but what do we all know?
You got to know how to use them.
You got to know how to use the tools. Which tools, how to use them. And the same thing for me is if you ask me to paint this wall behind me, the first thing I'm going to do out is like a giant roller. But I haven't taped anything, have I? I haven't done anything in this process whatsoever. So preparation, and really understanding, one of the things that I do with when I was doing one-to-one consulting is flow charting from start to finish. And then what happens if it doesn't? So like we used to call it green light, red light.
Yep.
And you have to flow chart this and take out, used to be easy because there was computer paper where you had that long spread, but now you just still have to do that if you manually. Now you can do it with software. Absolutely. It really depends if you're visual or how you want to do it. There is a connection between hand and brain versus typing in brain or spreading it out. Doesn't matter. It's still got to get done. But that's really what you need, because once you lay it out, you go, oh, I see why we can't ever get them to clean the brushes or clean the brushes our way, because we never showed them what our way is. Yep. So that's why I talk really about. Then you can start going faster, as you talked about the spinning wheel on the bike. Now you're ready to really go. Now you can, what I always I'm sorry for laughing, but what I always kind of come back to is, so you're out of shape, but you want to get in shape. So let's start with a marathon.
Right.
No.
Great idea.
How about if we get you to run a couple of blocks, see how you do. Let's see if we can get you up to a mile. And then, rest and assess is the best way to describe it.
Yep. Yep. That's awesome. So yeah, I'm assuming it's not, yes, you can start documenting and flow charting all the stuff out. But you have to have in your mind, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. I'm thinking if I'm an owner, like what are the most valuable or like easiest, like take this, plug it in, here's something that transforms your business that a lot of people get wrong as far as like process goes.
Yeah. When I was doing one-to-one work, people were paying me 6 figures come and work with them for, 18 months to 3 years, depending on what they wanted and how much to do. And we always started with planning power. And planning power basically is every great idea you have. You can't do it all at once. And the question for all of you is, do you need another great idea? Or do you need an idea actually implemented? And the answer is obviously number two. So, but which idea? So working on the right things at the right time in the right way is what planning power is. All the great ideas go to the top of the funnel. They work their way down by either fixing biggest problem or challenge or greatest chance to grow and be profitable. You arrive at the top 30, and 30 would be 30 projects or habits, not all projects. Things like steps of discipline or delegation. Those are habits that have to get into your company as well as a direct mail postcard campaign as an example. You've got those 30 projects, but you can't work on 30 things at one time effectively. So you use the same strainers again, fix big problem, challenge, greatest chance to grow and be profitable, and you arrive at the top 5. And the promise to yourself and to your company, because I make my guys over there put up on the wall the top 5. That's not how they got it done. It was to communicate to the company, what are the 5 things we are working on that's going to make that big impact? And the problem is for companies, when I would go to companies, I always, as part of that deal, first time in, was I need to talk to 4 techs, not all your best techs, not all your worst techs. I want to mix. And I'm going to have a private one-to-one conversation with each of them, and I am not telling you what they say. But I'll have a better reflection of what this business is really like versus what you tell me it's like. And what they really hated most, these techs, was you said, this is really important. And then the next day you were either a conference or you're on a telephone call, or you met up with one of your friends, and now you said, I know I said this was important, but now this is really important. And they hate when you chase the shiny object. So what you train your team to do is stand still, because when the wind changes, so will you. Now, it was bad, honestly, when I was at the helm. But that was years ago. That was webinars and seminars and books and, events. Now there are a million events you could go to. I don't even know that you never have to go to work again if you just want to go do the event circuit. And the same thing goes for, is there any shortage of business books? No, they are not. And then there's also, of course, a little thing called, social media, where every minute you get another thought. Now, here's the thing about social media. I enjoy going into the Facebook groups, and I do contribute as much as I can because I've been blessed and I give back that information. But you have to ask yourself a really big question. Am I following an idiot or a genius? And how would I know? Because information is cheap. So one of the things I talk about, and of course I'm prejudiced to my own system, which is the 7 building blocks: planning power, operating power, staffing power, sales coaching, marketing power, financial power. Those are the 7 blocks that I put under those 2 companies, giant companies that were out of control or small companies where they ran out of being able to duplicate themselves. You need a structure. And the other reason you need a structure is so that when you get information, you can ask yourself, does this fit? So the example I usually talk about is, if I gave you, Chris, the ability to build your dream car, would you start with a Ford chassis, a Hyundai engine, Toyota seats? And the answer, of course, is no, that'd be crazy. But that's exactly what you guys do when you start plucking information from all over that doesn't necessarily fit. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I have an interesting conversation I was having recently is so I've been doing the back end of businesses and the tech side for a while. 5 years of like automating painting companies. And I feel like, so I'm in this little town, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
I have to know where it is.
Oh, you've been
I
here?
really feel bad for you to be living in such a tough place.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, if it was just greener, more mountains and lakes.
Yeah, I know. And if we only like some water or someplace nearby that you can use.
Exactly.
And is it Sandpoint?
Yes.
I worked with a company in of all places, Cranbrook, Canada. So I would fly into Spokane, which is how I found Coeur d'Alene and
Yeah, drive
Sandpoint.
right through it to get to Sandpoint.
Yep.
So yeah, what I'm wondering is in this, like, I have a desire, and I don't know how many or how often, or if you've ever worked with entrepreneurs that are looking to buy contracting business or home service businesses. But I feel like with the systems and processes that we have and know and have deep knowledge in, I would love to be able to buy electrical plumbing businesses and implement better processes and turn them around. It's kind of like what you're saying. You did it to your own business and you have people that hire you for their businesses. But I was talking to my wife about this, and she said, if that's really all that people had to do was just put in better processes, then why isn't every business like, how is it that we're the secret sauce, or we have the knowledge that nobody else does? What would be your answer to that? Because it is like, I mean, I don't know
I
why
would
are
tell you
businesses
that.
struggling.
I would tell you that because one of the things, first of all, the reason we don't do it is because, and having sat in the chair, I'm not pointing a finger at you because the four fingers are still pointing at me. At one point, it was my ego. It's my ego gets in the way of, doing what you said, which is systems and stuff. But in my book, I talk about the three identities that I finally realized was going on because again, we were not a small company, 70 people, 17 million. So what I finally realized is I loved being the rescuer at my company. I hated it, but I loved it. Let me try it again. I hated it and I loved it. And if you are like me, and you hate it and you love it. So you like riding to the rescue. Second thing is you like firemen. You like to be putting fires out. And your company is happy to make as many fires as they need. No, that wall wasn't supposed to be tan. It was supposed to be brown. So, that's really, you didn't give enough good information. So you helped set a fire that you now can come and put out. And the last one was guru. I loved being the guru. I went to all the best of the training, and I was constantly training and reading and things of that nature above what anyone else is. So when someone would get stuck, who do they call? Me. At first, it was annoying that they would have to come and interrupt my day. But finally, when I ripped myself out of myself and I realized I was the fault because I liked being the guy you have to go to get the information. So when you ask why these guys don't do this, Chris, that's one of the big reasons.
Is ego, basically.
There's
It's
ego,
like,
and
yeah.
in the form of those three identities. As far as
And the identities, just to recap, are firefighter, guru, and what was the third?
rescuer.
Rescuer.
Yep, three of those. Cavalry.
Yeah.
So that's really what really holds us back. And for people like yourself and me now, when you're not in the daily fire, it's easy to see that the building is on fire. And when you work there every day, you go to work with your hands over your eyes like this, or like this, if you're blinders. We have blinders that we have created to not see it. So it's easy for someone else to do it. I will tell you, if you're speaking to yourself, my wife, fortunately, when I left the business, grew up in a family business that was started in 1936. My dad and my uncle had grown it out of the gas station my grandfather had. And my brothers and I came along in the 70s and 80s. And then now, of course, my nephew is there with my middle brother, his fourth generation. But we approached this with every not good enough as is, always getting better. And that's really a journey that people don't quite see. Having said that, there's things that when I left, I knew that there were things that they were going to do just as well because inertia was in that way. Some things they were going to do worse because I was the glue that held it up. And then they were going to do things better because I never even thought about it, if you follow. But we from the side. So anyway, I come out here and I come to Arizona, and I think to myself, I could probably run my own plumbing, heating, cooling, electric shop here. And my wife, this is, okay, before you laugh too hard, this is 2002. Natalie takes the phone book off, and it's huge. And she opens up the plumbing, heating, cooling sections, and there's pages and pages and pages of people who do this work. And she looks at me and she goes, "You want to know why you would consider the plumbing, heating, cooling, electric business after you just left 26 full-time years, not counting years you were in college and you worked 6 months a year or any other of those times? You want to prove to yourself and to your brothers and your dad that you could do it on your own. Do you really want to work 24 hours again? Do you want to sleep with the phone next to your head? Because otherwise, that's not why you left. You left to go teach this to other people, how to run their business in a way which less stress and more success. Can we do it? That's really my opinion about when we look at it. Could we do it? Of course we can. And I also, by the way, owned a franchise that went nationwide with one of my customers, Jim Cornetti, who's in Zoom Trade and Sewer, and Ellen Rohr, the great financial wizard who worked with me on so many different things. The three of us formed this partnership and we created a franchise that went nationwide. And many of the companies, Chris, that I have sold, sorry, I didn't sell. Many of the companies that have been sold with this PE wave, many were mine because they were systematic and they were so attractive and had grown so fast, but so well. There's a difference between growing fast and growing well. And having both of them is really based in those systems. So a lot of these guys got, generational money and still either have a piece of the action or whatever, but they're really just from coast to coast guys that I work with who were able to do that.
Yeah. So what would be I'm listening to what you're saying is that you could go buy or run a business, but you're saying that your passion or purpose in life is training others.
Well, I am on pursuit of purpose, so I need to make sure that I'm clear.
Yeah.
I retired at 48, technically, to go do this business. And at that time, I was fortunate enough that I really didn't have to work again. But I felt I had been given a gift. I worked hard for that gift, by the way. It wasn't like it was just dumped in my lap, but I did get a great head start. And a lot of great mentors came into my life. And I felt the obligation to give back. Now, I got paid, but it wasn't money that I was going to put my kids through college. I already had all of that and everything else. And really, I thought to myself, well, if I don't do something, it's a good chance I won't be married. And so I got to go out. I got to work. I got to travel. And for 22 years, it was a really great career, doing that part. I put my programs online so that I wouldn't do it. Now, when I was talking about the 24/7, hopefully your painters are not being awoken at 2 a.m. about there's a painting mistake. Yeah. You have to come fix it tonight.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably the biggest difference between plumbing and heating for sure. And then I guess electrical will be up there. Those three.
And cooling. All four are very intensive.
And it's like it's got to get fixed now. Like my family's freezing. It's 0 degrees outside. Whereas painting is there's no painting emergency.
There isn't. We are in the holiday season right now, and my relatives who are very judgy as it is, I better get that room painted that I knew I should have painted like 6 months ago. So there isn't any contractor that doesn't have a pressure point. But I had a friend who told me a very good thing years ago. He goes, we were originally just in heating. And then I knew we had to expand out because if we didn't, we would lose our customer base because they were asking us for these things. So I talked to a friend who was in Pennsylvania. I was in New York. And he goes, you think you heard people screaming at you for no heat? Wait till you do cooling or plumbing. He said, they are going to scream like you've never heard. He said, here's the good news. The louder they scream, the more money they're going to pay.
That's funny. What would be if you were because you ran a business that was the heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. What would be if you were starting a business from with those services, that was the ultimate goal? You don't jump in and do all four at once, but what is the ideal way to add, in your opinion? Like, what's of those services? Is there one that's like do this first and then add plumbing, then add whatever?
I'm going to do it in a two-parter and hopefully not forget myself here. But so we did heating, and then we decided that we had to do cooling as well. So we added a module on. So here's what changed for us. We systematized our heating business. We spent $150,000 of today's money to create manuals and org charts for running our heating business. There was none of that. And a little perspective, this was 1994 or 96. So our company had been in business for 60 years. And the only way that things worked is everyone ran around with their head chopped off. And hopefully the money would follow. And most times it did, but still it was enormous chaos. And so systematizing our business, because we always had way more calls than we could humanly do. People ask, well, how did you pay off $150,000? I said, we paid it off in 2 years for these reasons. Callbacks went down, which means you have to go run back, callback, repeats, whatever you call them. The call dollar per ticket went up because they were looking around, suggesting good things, doing better work. We weren't chasing our tail. And then we could put more trucks on the road. That's how we paid off that money. So once we had heating locked, then we go, what's next? And we already learned the key, which is write the manual, create the right hands-on training center so they learn here, not on the job. We used to call that on-the-job training, but we never said it out loud. We just called it OTJT, on-the-job training, which is how you guys all train painters. Yep. They're not painting anyplace else except at some customer's house, which if you think about it, your customers are being charged for you to teach your team how to paint, and that's not right. So the point of this is there's manuals first, because the right training center is built off the tasks of the manual. And then you have to have training curriculum, and you need to become better trainers yourself so you can do what we did, which is take willing people, willing apprentices with no skills, to willing techs with great skills. And it totally applies. I don't care what trade you do, but including painting, there's really, you have this ability, and guys are doing it already. The same thing that I'm speaking about. That's a smart way to add whatever it tests. Now, some of this also comes from what are customers asking you? Because if you're really like we were, a great heating company, they loved us. They go, hey, do you guys do plumbing? Do you guys do gas heating? Do you do gas, And finally, we just said, why are we always saying no? Because if we keep saying no, other companies that do these multiple services are going to come and take our customers. Now, we did say no once, big time once, was one of my competitors got into the security, home alarms, ADT, think of that way. And they were starting to take some customers. And I had a really good friend who was in the security business, and that's what he did. And I just got together with him at lunch and I go, do you want to be in the plumbing, heating, cooling, electric business? Because I think you don't. Here's what I want to tell you. I don't want to be in the security business. It's not even good for the customer. So you and I will sign a standstill agreement. I will recommend all my customers for security to you, and they will be served better. And you're going to recommend all your customers to me. So this is that decision point as to what it is. So painting, first obviously is, are you only inside painting? Are you outside painting? If you're doing outside painting, could you also treat the whole exterior, get into roofing, get into siding, there's a lot of different things you can do. But my suggestion is, unless you have totally documented and mastered how you paint and where you paint and how you do it, and if I made you build a spoke shop or what I call a satellite shop, where you're not there every day making everything happen, and you can't run that satellite shop, then you really have no business running into another trade. Does that cover it?
And so, but as far as the first one, you're saying it doesn't matter, whichever one you're in.
I would say something adjacent to what you're in. So if you're in painting and you're saying, well, we're really great at residential, should we be doing commercial? Now, I never want to be in the middle. I always want to work for the end user. So that I have control of pricing that way versus working for general contractors where they make their money by keeping my price down to go to customers. That might be one alternative. If they're only painting inside, they're not doing outside like we were talking about. Could they do leaders and gutters? Another connection if you're doing outside. Could you do windows? Could you do shutters? There's a lot of different things that could all do that. You could even branch into roofing if that's what you do, because one thing that a painter, especially an outside painter, has got to get good at is ladders.
Right.
Get up and down the ladders safely. I worked with a roofing company and also a power washing company. And a big part of the manuals was about doing just that, because these guys have incredibly high, cost for insurance, because it's one of those things, learning how to set up fall protection. There's a lot of different things that really come into this. But if you can get up and down the ladders right, here's the other part. You could do a great job of painting my house, and I could still be unhappy because you crushed my rose bushes or you drip paint all over my sidewalk. I don't love you very much.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah. And then, or parallel to that would be, if you like, this is again just my curiosity coming from someone like you. If I am looking to buy a service company, so I've never run a service company. I've only helped the back end of all the companies that could be bought that I could look at. Which one do you feel like is a great one to like sink your teeth into as a first time service business owner?
It's kind of funny that one of the biggest things that I would say is obstacle to entry, which sounds backwards. You'd think you'd want to go into something that's easy to get into, and then there is no obstacle to entry. But what we learned is, with obstacle to entry, it controls the amount of competition. It isn't somebody can just drive up with a white truck and say, oh, here I am, same business. So obstacle to entry is one of those things. And then the question is it a 365 business that you can use year round? Is it adjunct to what you are? Can you train people up to that? So for my case, if I were to start it again, I would be in electrical first, and then I would move back to HVAC and plumbing.
Interesting.
Exactly opposite to the way it is. But just because electrical is a lot easier, a lot cleaner, there is a very high bar, obviously, to electrical. But I've trained electricians all across the country. And now, actually, because the programs are online, I have electricians that have been in my program that are from Australia, New Zealand, the UK. So, yeah.
That's awesome. What are like the biggest, we got maybe 5 minutes left here. Any other like key core principles or concepts that you love sharing?
Yeah. So pick the foundation. And again, if my book, The 7-Power Contractor, talks about this 7 powers, think of it's either putting a foundation under a big company you are already, or you're stuck, you're ceilinged out. Now you need this structure. Either one of those things is going to make the biggest difference for you. And ultimately, you got to decide. I was taught by a friend, actually, great industry friend. He said, you have to do a daily business meditation. I go, what? He goes, yeah, at the end of every day, I want you to do this for 15 minutes. What business am I in? What business should I be leaving? And what should I be doing that I don't do right now? Those 3 questions every day. And what he was trying to say to me, because, he was always very read and he was a great industry writer. Because he asked me, he says, what business are you in? I go, heating. He goes, no, your answer's wrong. And then I said, okay, well, we'll do plumbing. He goes, wrong. So finally he wanted me to say I'm in the comfort business. So his point to that message was the great railroad, way before our time, these railroad, barons had tons of money, and they could have bought every airline for nothing. But they believed they were in the railroad business, not in transport business. You follow?
Yep. Yeah, identifying what's the core thing that, like, the higher level principle or thing that people are actually buying, because it's like no one needs electricity. They need what electricity gives them.
That's it's the famous thing. Nobody goes to Home Depot because they want to own a drill. They need a hole in this wall right next to me.
Right. Yes. Awesome. Well, 3 book recommendations.
Well, I'm prejudiced, but The 7-Power Contractor by Al Levi. It's a very small book. I have a million times more information than that, but I know how valuable our time is. My goal is you will read it over and over again and learn more and more, like peeling away at an onion. It is in paperback, ebook, Audible. And if you like this, great voice, well, okay, if you're stuck in a truck, you can listen to it. The other one I would suggest is my good partner, Ellen Rohr. And the name is tricky on the back spelling. It's R-O-H-R, Ellen Rohr. And her book has helped every contractor that I know for the last 20 to 30 years. It's called Where Did the Money Go? Which could not be named better. She wrote 2 books, Where Did the Money Go and How Much Should I Charge? And they're actually read in sequence. And then my protege, the person I worked with, Tommy Mello, M-E-L-L-O, there's no W, wrote Elevate. And there's a lot of really good information there. Those would be my 3 books.
Awesome. And a movie or show suggestion?
Well, we were talking before we got started here is I stream a lot of stuff. And to me, if you have Apple, you got to be watching Slow Horses. It is just that good. Shrinking is hysterical and also deep. So that's really good. As to, action wise, I hope they bring back Jack Ryan, but I'm not really sure if they are. So.
I have not heard of Slow Horses. So that's a really good one.
Yeah. I tell you, there are some great shows from Britain, and even though we're quote unquote speaking the same language, it's a little difficult. But if you have the captions up, it's really great. The acting is, and it's funny. It's just really a great hit. Slow Horses on Apple. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Gary Oldman is the lead character.
That's awesome. And what's your preferred method of contact if someone wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best thing is to go to my website because there's a ton of information in my blogs there. There's a drop down for the blogs, and you'll get a lot of free information there. But number 7, powercontractor.com. No spaces, no hyphen. And then if you want to connect with me, in the bottom right side, it says connect with us. Click on that box. You can send me a message. I do offer a free 30-minute meeting to talk about your business and, as appropriate, what my online programs do. So you can take advantage of that as well.
Well, Al, this was great. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And I will be sure to include all of those links in the show notes down below. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time on The Pursuit of Purpose. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show, and also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.